We are back. New York City baseball, past, present, and future. I'm Ralph Tyko with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. The hosts of the show are Marty Rose, originally from Jackson Heights, living in Florida, and Robert Deininger, a New Jerseyite. How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
Very good.
Good. Marty?
Fine. Thank you. Good.
Good. We have a guest who's a football maven first, but and appeared on these airwaves last week on the Halbach Vintage Sports from Nedick's at the Garden show, and is that was the second time you've been on, Don. And it occurs to me, because you mentioned that you were also into baseball, that you would be able to come on and give us like a fourth eye on what's happening with the 2017 Mets. We know what's happening with them, and your view on the Yankees too. So, Don Stokes, love to have you. Welcome, and start off with you. What's your overall view on the season for the New York teams?
Well, thank you first for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. And as Ralph said, I do have an affinity for baseball. It's been my first love, actually, and I'm just drawn by it, obviously. But as far as the New York teams are concerned, it's basically been a tale of two boroughs, the way I see it. The Yankees in the Bronx, obviously, they've had the ups and downs this season, but they seem to have righted the ship. They're in second place right now. They're churning towards a wild card berth, and they're playing probably their best baseball since June of this year. And with Sanchez and Aaron Judge also seems to have gotten his self righted around, things are going well for the Yankees. And then we come to the Mets, unfortunately. And as far as the Mets are concerned, it's been a tough year. They had high expectations, obviously, with this vaunted starting staff that they had this year, and they were expected a lot out of Harvey and DeGrom and guys of that nature, but it hasn't turned out that way, and they've been hit very hard with injuries, and it looks like it's going to be a total rebuild coming from Queens. And basically, this is what's going on right now as far as both teams are concerned. You have one team looking forward to October, the other one waiting to pack their bags to get out.
Let me just quickly correct you about DeGrom, though. You might pick another name, Wheeler and Thor was hurt or whatever. DeGrom's really been solid, and he's been a favorite of Mert and I's for last 2 or 3 years.
Yep.
So let me jump in and have Mert talk about DeGrom a little bit.
Oh, well, yeah, he's just the mainstay of the staff. The ace of the staff, obviously, probably the only guy that hasn't been out for any period of time. I mean, he did have a couple of games in the middle of the season where he was on the ropes a little bit, but he recovered from that. I mean, it's a long season; everybody's got to go through that. But he made, almost all his starts. Which you can't say for anybody else on that team. And he's like one of the few real pros that are out there now. If you look at that team
I just
now,
had to give some homage to the guy, Don. Don, would you listen with me as Marty, who's a Mets fan and very objective about both teams, and Robert, who's a Yankee fan and very objective about both teams, are going to give their assessment of the teams that they're not fans of. So let's start with Robert. Why don't you talk what you see about the Mets? You're not an anti-Met guy, but you're not right?
Right.
You're a Yankee fan, but you can be objective, and I think you really like them, just like I like the Yankees on a certain level. We want our teams to win, but I'm looking forward to your assessment of the Mets, as I will be with Marty's assessment of the Yankees. So take it away, Robert Deininger.
Well, I haven't really taken in a whole lot of Mets games this season, but pitching and injuries have not been the Mets' friend this season. I mean, they really got a run. They've had a run of bad luck with injuries in their starting pitching this year. You know, I saw Harvey the other day. He got shelled again, but they say they like what they see in between his starts. So they're going to bring him back next year. But I think they just had a run of bad luck this season with the injuries and the starting pitching.
Yeah. With Harvey, you've got to say, as long as he's healthy, that's a good sign, because we forget what traumatic injuries he's coming back from, and that whatever happened this year was not structural and damage.
Yeah. And Sandy, I saw Sandy, he said they really like what they're seeing in between his starts of late. So I don't know what that means, but it looks like they will be bringing him back.
Good. You guys did read that they're bringing back the training staff for whatever reason.
They must work cheap, Ralph.
I can't imagine it. But, you know, I read something that Cespedes, he's going to change his ways, whatever that means. Now, so should we be blaming the players? Jim Thrift talked to that when he was on a few weeks ago, that sometimes the trainers can only work with what they've got and how much are these guys giving back. And Cespedes, who's naturally he's out for the rest of the year, has got to address the hamstring problem, the tightness in his legs, and the regime. That was one of the reasons I thought a drastic change was needed in the training staff, if nothing else but for him. Saying that they work cheap might just be the answer to it all, Marty. Sometimes it comes down to just that simple, or maybe they're under long-term. He's under a long-term contract that they have to pay
guys have
out.
their own workout regimens, though. You know, I don't think the training staff has a lot to do with them in the off season if they don't see them, if they're not in the Arizona.
Oh, not in the off season, but during the season. Are they?
Well, I think a lot of his problems were his off season workout regimen was too strenuous on his lower body. So, got to change.
Oh, okay, I got you. Mm-hmm. So maybe he's working hard, but not working smart.
Correct. That's what I think.
We all do at times. Some of us do at times. Some of us don't work hard and don't work smart. So that's the way it goes. Marty, your assessment of the Yankees?
Well, at the beginning of the year, there was a lot of speculation about the starting pitching. And I also recall at the beginning of the year that your Mr. Home Run right fielder didn't even have a definite starting job, as I recall.
No.
Right here, right? So,
yeah, he's battling with Aaron Hicks.
Yeah, he's going to make the team. They're going to send him down. What they're going to do? So, I mean, these guys, the catcher and Sanchez and your big guy there in right field, just tearing the cover off the ball. But a lot of other good things happened. I mean, CeCe had, I think, a lot better year than a lot of people thought. and Severino came into his own. And obviously the bullpen has been, phenomenal, even though the closer has had some problems. But the bullpen is so deep that they've been pulling guys out early, and the pitching has held up. So, that was a big question mark at the beginning of the year. And they've gotten
Chapman
a
has
lot
come on
out
of late.
Of late he has. But, the whole lineup has been solid. You can't say there was a guy who didn't do his job this year. Even when the Castro, even when he was out, some little guy like half the size of Judge comes in. And the pictures are funny in the paper. But, this guy, he did a heck of a job. Torreyes,
yeah,
very, very good job filling in. Headley moves over to first base. Looked like he's been playing there his whole life. Gardner had a terrific year. Everybody played up to or above their potential, I think, for the Yankees this year. So it's been a big surprise to a lot of people.
Hats off to Ellsbury.
Ellsbury too, yeah, exactly.
He's played his way back in.
Yep.
Well, I will say that the Yankees did have some problems at first base, and they signed Chris Carter late in the spring training, and he didn't work out, as we all know. So I don't know what team he's on now. I think he's on Oakland. And this is obviously a situation where the Yankees are going to have to address this, whether Greg Bird is the answer at first base or whether they're going to go out and get someone else.
Well, Bird is hit with injuries constantly.
But between Bird and Headley, for now, I think that's working out pretty well right now.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Matt Holliday going into the postseason, as far as the roster, if they're going to put him on the postseason roster.
Oh yeah, wow! To think that they're going to have those problems with Holliday, to have thought that in spring training, wow!
Yeah.
It's indeed addressing Aaron Judge in spring training. I just wanted to add to that. They were going to very close to sending him down. And he wasn't showing signs of really laying off that curveball like he's not doing now. What do you suppose got him in that funk? And is it just that players are human? It's a long season. They run into streaks. We expect them to be machines. What do you suppose caused Judge's decline and subsequently his rejuvenation? I'll ask you, Don Stokes.
Well, I've been following Aaron Judge basically since the beginning of spring training, and I kind of knew that once he had an opportunity to play, he was going to be the starting right fielder for the Yankees. And I think the biggest issue with Judge, when no one really had a book on him, and he's made some adjustments from last year. You remember in 2016, he struck out like half of his plate appearances. I think he struck out like 43 times in 84 at-bats, and everybody saw what he was doing wrong, so he made adjustments over the winter. And to be honest with you, the pitchers really didn't know how to pitch to him. They tried outside. They threw him a lot of fastballs that stayed at his waist level, so he creamed them. And then what happened after the All-Star break, and I guess they took the page out of the Boston Red Sox on how Aaron Judge was being pitched to, was they were throwing him fastballs up high, number one, and they were getting him out that way, and they were throwing him sliders, and they were getting him out that way. So he had to adjust, and obviously in the last couple of months he had problems, and now in September he seems to have turned it around, and I think he is a player that you saw back in May and June right now.
Yeah, his last 7 games, he's batting .348 with 4 homers and 11 RBIs.
Well, I wonder how much coaching has to do with that when a player is down. It's such a subjective subject. You can't really quantify just generally. But I'm just wondering about Yankee coaches. I wonder about Met coaches. How much do you suppose coaching played? Looking at tapes, watching the films, this and that. It's because it's not just physical sometimes.
If they watched the films, Ralph, I think they would have seen, especially right after the All-Star break, that nobody was throwing them any strikes.
Yeah.
They were just throwing the ball, any which way, outside, high. He wasn't getting any strikes, and he was, he just kept swinging at things, and that's why he was striking out so much. And then maybe some of this studying of the tapes paid off, and he all of a sudden started walking 3 times a game because nobody's throwing him anything over the plate. So, I think that had a lot to do with it.
Well, again, we talked about this, Don, on the show over the months. He's a great guy. He's a guy that you want to see do well and represent baseball. So I wish him the best. All right, we'll come to the point in the show where we're going to try to get to know you, Don, as a fan. I want to know, because this is a baseball show. Let's start with your first experience going to a game and what that was about when you were a kid. Who took you? What are your memories? This, that, and the other thing. Let us get to know you.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I mean, I went to my first baseball game. I'm kind of dating myself, but that's fine. I went to my first baseball game. I was 9 years old. It was 1970. And it was in April, and it was against the Padres. It was at Shea Stadium, and Tom Seaver was pitching. And surprisingly, that was a game Tom Seaver struck out 19 batters, and he struck out the last 10 batters in a row. And I thought, of course, that every game was going to be like this. I figured every time I was going to come to Shea Stadium, it was going to be exciting and thrilling like this. But unfortunately, it didn't turn out like that. But my first experience, as I said, was going to Shea Stadium in 1970, and I was a Met fan when I was a kid, and I enjoyed going to Shea Stadium. And as I got older, of course, I learned to appreciate the Yankees about 1995 or so, and at that point, I had become disillusioned with baseball in general, but for some reason, that 95 Yankee squad just kind of captivated me because they were trying to get to the playoffs for Don Mattingly.
Yeah.
And they made it. And unfortunately, they lost that tough series against the Seattle Mariners, and at that point, I was hooked. And I never changed allegiance like that because I've been a Jet fan all my entire life, but for some reason, the Yankees just did it for me, and by 96, of course, they won the whole thing, and they won the World Series, and I've been a Yankee fan since then. But for the most part, my experience with baseball, I've enjoyed it. It's always been fun and enlightening, and it's always been a joy just to get on the subway and go to Willis Point or even go to 161st Street and River Avenue to see the Yankees play.
What part of the city did you grow up in, Don?
Oh, well, I grew up in the South Bronx.
Oh, okay. So you were right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was right there. I was a subway right away from Yankee Stadium,
Wow.
that is, anyway.
Wow. Where did you go to school? Where did you go to high school?
I went to high school at a school called Manhattan Vocational Technical High School. It was in Manhattan, and it was near 96th Street, and it was right near the river. And it's, I call that one of the big mistakes of my life, but that's another story. But I played baseball there, and I enjoyed it. It was fun, and I made my way to Yankee Stadium. I had a few tryouts with them, and one of the great experiences I have of standing out in center field at Yankee Stadium and shagging flies. It was a great experience.
You sound like you're about Rivera. Manny's age, Manny Rivera, and he grew up in the South Bronx. Did you play with or against him?
You mean Manny Ramirez?
Ramirez. Did I say Rivera? Boy, long day.
Oh, it's okay. No, he was a little younger than me, so I think he was born in the 70s, I believe, if I remember right. And,
okay.
But I remember reading about him But no, he didn't play during my time period.
Okay. And this might be a good time because we got a long winter with with this show. Let's talk a little Jets, how things are progressing this year, and what do you think? I destined to say that progress is being made, but how do you feel? Don?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you about the Jets.
How long is this show?
You've got the mic, so it's
okay. This is a situation where this is a longtime Jet fan with a longtime frustration, but it's kind of like something that you learn to deal with. This team is 0-2. They're playing the Dolphins this weekend.
I guess some guy. Well,
yeah.
I know.
Yeah. And
Marty and I know. Robert, what are your real quick? What are your football inclinations, fandom, whatever the hell I'm saying?
I'm a Giants fan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I feel for the Jets though. I really do, because I do like watching the Jets.
Okay. Then you have a little knowledge of what's been going on all these many years.
Yeah.
And the frustration.
Yeah.
I admire you for hanging in there with the Jets and Don. And at the same time, I kind of shake my head. You went to the Yankees, and it's a city where you grow up. You root for one team or another, and I got to say that's very interesting.
Well, let me say this briefly and quickly. Being a Jet fan is the toughest gig in sports, and I'll explain to you briefly why. Because the Jets last won, for most of us, either we were a child or we were a very young man, number one. Number two, because of the Giants' success, it's made it tougher to be a Jet fan. See, when you're a Browns fan or you're an Eagles fan, you can say whatever, but it's not the same thing. You got to deal with a team, meaning the Giants, that you shared a stadium with for the last 30 plus years. And it's tough watching the Giants be successful, and your team is still stuck in 1969.
Yeah. But what great memory, if you're going to have a year to be stuck in, what great memories 1969 for New York. You had the Mets, you had the Knicks. You didn't quite have the Rangers. That took another few years. But and you had the Mets, and they were all beating Baltimore teams. It was just really an incredible year. And ironically, Marty and I, who had both grown up, we grew up in Queens. We were both, because of the Air Force, we were elsewhere that year. Amazing. But we followed it. When following sports from out of town was very difficult. Very difficult. Either following the Giants if you were in New York after they moved, or coming out to California like I did and following New York teams. Technology has improved tenfold along the way. So, Don, your assessment of this year's 2017 New York Jets.
Well, the assessment goes as follows, basically. This is going to be a tough year. I mean, let's be frank about it. This team needs a lot of work. The defense is supposed to be the strength of this club, but so far it really hasn't played that well. You kind of wonder if the defense coordinator, Casey Rogers, is going to remain with the club for the entire season. They have a lot of holes on offense. Josh McCown is the quarterback, and he's kind of the quarterback out of default at this point.
For how long?
Chris, yeah. Well, the problem, the good thing for him, He picked the right team because, there's no competition. I mean, they're not going to play Hackenberg.
How many games are they going to give him before they have to put in one of the other, the other guy?
They're not, because number one, the people keep saying that the Jets are trying to tank the season. They're not trying to tank the season. Nobody really wants the number one draft pick.
Nah, they'd be starting Petty or Hackenberg if that was the case.
Yeah. They're not trying to tank the season. And plus, if you're tanking the season, guess what? That coaching staff won't be there. So they know that they have to win some games. So Hackenberg does not give them a chance to win. And we saw what Petty did last year. So it's going to be McCowan, like it or not. And he might win 4 games this year, and that's not going to be the number one draft pick.
Well, you're right in the middle there. That's
I'll probably give them the 4th pick at that point because, the Browns are not going to be that great. And the jury is out on Jacksonville. So that's 2 teams that should finish under the Jets as far as record is concerned. And the Jets, I'm a Jet fan, and it's been 50 years, basically, that I've been a Jet fan, and it's a long road. But, hopefully I like to see them win a Super Bowl before I close my eyes the last time.
Oh, yeah. That was,
I think that my worst memory of recent, it's not even recent, is when they had that 10-0 lead in Denver against the Broncos in the AFC Championship game, and then they just completely blew it in the second half.
I remember that well.
With Testaverde, and then the next year, Testaverde goes down in the second game for the season?
The first game, yeah.
First game, was it? Okay.
And the first game, yeah.
So that I really thought at halftime, I really thought they were going to win that game, but no, wasn't to be. Unbelievable.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've all had our frustrations. There was a kicker. I was at Radio Shack watching a game, and a kicker. I can't even think. It must have been the very early '90s. And a kicker misses a field goal that would have put them in the playoffs. And remember, Alameda's a small little town, a little Radio Shack. I'm saying people coming in there with their kids. And I screamed out the worst profanity you can imagine in the middle of the store. And people are turning around and looking at me. It was just, and I don't remember. Probably.
It sounds like Nick Lowry.
That might have been it. It was just about to get into the playoffs and missed that, and because I have to say, I've been getting away from football an awful lot in the last part of my life. More so because baseball has been so all-encompassing in my life. But I remember in the mid-'80s watching a game and looking, and all of a sudden they flashed on an ambulance right on the sideline. No one had been hurt, but the ambulance was, they used to keep them way in the bowels of the stadium. And it was a time when Stingley had been paralyzed, and it had become just too violent a game. Did you guys ever go through that? Like, wow, all the injuries, these guys. Did that get to you guys at all? I'm just curious over the years.
It's always been a violent game. I think the penalties that they've put in the last, the last decade maybe, they seem to penalize these really rough hits. They don't let you pretty much touch the quarterback anymore.
Right. Well,
they've legislated what they could.
You got to balance that. It still is football, but this was before they were even thinking about that. and there was all kinds with the 49ers, these cheap leg blocks. They had a coach, McKendrick, and he would specifically teach how to undercut guys and take out their knees. And I remember that's what it is. I'm out here, the 49ers are doing great and all that, and that's what, I don't know, it's just
I could still remember Joe Theismann getting his leg broke by LT. As a kid watching that, I could still.
Was that when he got his ankle turned around so viciously?
Snapped. Yeah.
Yeah, I still turn. Yeah, that was brutal.
He had a compound fracture.
That was part of it. Stingley was another part of it. I don't know. Maybe it was because when I was in my working days, I was an insurance salesman, and an insurance salesman had to make calls on Monday night to set up his week. So I would end up missing Monday Night Football. For years and years, I never got to watch a Monday Night Football game. So that could have been what got me away from it. Anyway, we got to know you, Don. I'm very appreciative of you coming on. And you got to give us an insight to the baseball side of it. I hope you'll be a regular on our network because.
Well, I appreciate that. I enjoy you guys, and surprisingly, I knew you guys existed. I really did, and I'm glad I have an opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, well, we have a number of shows, and you start out, you're a utility man. You go from here to there. You meet the other hosts. You guest on their show. Become part of it. You're an additive. Yeah, you see, you could get to talk to me if you do this long enough.
Okay.
We appreciate your presence, and Robert and Marty, it's always fun.
Yep, enjoyed it, Ralph. Take care,
okay.
Don. Yep.
Good. Robert, you're okay? You had some woes earlier in the week, and things are working out?
Things are looking okay right now.
Good.
Keep it that way. Keep it on a nice, steady course. Okay.
All right, guys. So whenever you need me, I'm here.
It's nice meeting you, Don.
Beautiful.
Right.
As long as I feel like I'm not taking advantage of you, that'd be great.
I'll let you know.
All right. Please be clear.
Okay.
That's all we ask.
Okay.
Thanks for speaking your mind, everybody. I love it. Adios, everybody. Keep on keeping on. We'll be back next week.
Take it easy.